Mrs. Nation, aka Savage Armageddon Giraffe. Today, we're going to be doing machining as a part of my birthday little thing. But anyway, before I start, I would like to explain something. This video was supposed to be out last Saturday, but a lot of things happened in between Thursday, Friday, and last Saturday. So, I did all my recordings on Thursday, right? Um, Basically, what happened is I was rendering one of the videos. It was the Haters Guide to United Sanctuary, and as I was doing it, I decided, hey, I'll let me kill two birds in one stone. Let me record this video, and while this one is rendering. That was a bad idea. So basically, what happened was I ran out of memory in my computer after the video was done rendering. Um, of course, I did all this in a time constraint that I had to go to work. So basically, I decided to, hey, let me record this video, let the other one render. When it's done, I'm gonna decide I'm gonna just go to work. All right, so that was mistake number one. Number two was when I came back from work. It turned out that the video that I was trying to render didn't render at all. It got corrupted, and the video I was recording for this also got corrupted. So now I'm like, yo, how am I gonna do this in the time restraint that I got from like tonight and then tomorrow? So I decided to do all the re-recordings and everything else like that, clear up some space in the computer. uh Once again, everything kind of sort of got corrupted. I was trying to salvage like the files to like this particular one, but I couldn't do it in time, so I had to miss Saturday with the machining video. But at the same time, I had to you know, upload the United Sanctuary video on Saturday when it was supposed to be uploaded on Friday. So I'm all out of whack. I'm trying to get back into like everything and trying to like converse everything. So that's why today you're seeing both a machining video and you're seeing the Gun and Colio one in one particular day. But with that being said, enough with all the chit chat. Let's get this started. All right, so machining. Basically, in my honest opinion, machining has either one of two things. It either has no focus, and it either has somewhat of a focus, and it doesn't have synergy, or it has a little bit of synergy but no focus. And it's weird because the way I see it, I feel like that the synergy is there but is not effective. But at the same time, I could also say the same thing as, it doesn't have a focus either. So let me explain what I mean by this. All right, first, before I even explain it, let me explain what I mean by a focus in synergy. A focus is, in what the anime version terms, is the winning image. The focus is, I have a strategy that goes from point A to point B, and point C is how I'm going to kill my opponent off. While the synergy is basically how everything is going to come around in that focus. So it's like in between point A and point B, and then it's also in between point B and point C, if that makes any sense right there. But anyway, I'll give a prime example of a deck that does this perfectly, a sub clan that does this perfectly, might I add. No Seal. No Seal has a perfect pathway to being focused, and it also has perfect synergy. So what is the focus of No Seal? No Seal's focus is basically trying to get 5 No Seal cards into your damage zone, so that when Holy Seraph no seal attacks, you get to restand two of your rear guards. Um, so what is the point A to this? The point A is obviously, trying to set up a field and whatnot, and also trying to filter out your damage zone to get all no seals. Point B is mid to late game where you have 3 to 5 damage, because if you're at 3, at least you get to restand one rear guard. And then point C is obviously killing your opponent because you have 5 no seal cards in your damage zone, and um now you're able to kill your opponent off with the X amount of attacks that you can do with it. But you also got to remember the synergy of no seal is how you get those no seals into the damage zone while at the same time setting up a threatening field. Well, there's two particular cards that can basically do this um with ease. The first one is Love Machine No Seal, which is a grade 2 that allows you to counterblast Soul Blast on place, regardless if it's Vanguard or Rearguard circle. To put a no seal from your deck into the damage zone and heal put one of the cards in your damage zone, which is more likely the card you counterblast, and put it into your hand. Holy Seraph is on play, Soul Blast 1. Look for a card with no seal in his name from the deck and put it into the damage zone. And at the end of the turn, you get to put a card from your damage zone to the bottom of your deck. The no seal card you're specifically looking for is Happy Build No Seal, because during your turn, Happy Build No Seal, if you have a no seal Vanguard, allows you to give 5k to everybody in your front row. And of course his stack. So the actual goal is to get at least 4 of those no seals be Happy Build No Seal. Now there's obviously other cards that allows you to exchange cards from one card from your hand and one card to your damage zone, and put it back into like the exchange it and whatnot. I don't know why I like messed up there. But overall, you see how point A point goes to point B goes to point C. You see the focus that goes in within that particular clan. You see how it goes within that particular deck. Mega Colony with machining, on the other hand, kind of feels like it's all over the place. It feels like when it comes to the focus, it's like there's no point B. Machining basically looks like it goes from point A to point C. And here's what I mean by this. Or at least it feels like that there's no point C and there's a point A and a point B. And here's what I mean by this. Ask yourself this for a second. What is the overall goal of machinings? You can't really answer that, can you? This is because there's nothing that really gives a quote unquote end game to everything that machining has to offer. I do remember talking about in my other haters guide video where I talk about how Jammy Congo was one of my favorite cards to come out of the V series, but at the same time, there's no end game. There's no way for you to end the game with him. And I feel like that's the same thing with machining. There's no way for you to really end the game at all. Um and I'll give you a prime example. Like, I will say if I had to choose two of the best machining cards, grade threes in the game, it definitely has to be um Machining Black Saturn, which is a recent promo card that we got, and Machining Smart Hercules, which was legitimately one of our first VRs. Now, um both of their effects has to do with restanding your whole field and giving all of your rear guards +5, while at the same time, depending on which one, it gives out different effects. Black Saturn allows you to get +1 drive and -1 drive to your opponent's Vanguard, while Spark Hercules minuses 5k to everything in your opponent's field, and that's just about it until the end phase. Um, Black Saturn isn't really that bad because it gets +1 drive, but I kind of feel like he came way too late. Like, in my personal opinion, I feel like Black Saturn, if it would have just kept the same effect, but instead be on attack restand units, then that would have been a whole different story. But at the same time, you then have Spark Hercules, where Spark Hercules doesn't necessarily have five. There's no other card in Mega Colony that basically minuses X amount of attack to your opponent besides, Spark Hercules. There's not even a card that's like, oh, you get this effect if your opponent's attack is -7 or 8k or whatever, or is like 8k or less. You get this particular effect. There's nothing that allows you to do that. And it's like, when you look at everything else that comes in machining, whether it's the grade 1s, 2s, or 3s, there's hardly anything that goes with it. There's like maybe a couple of cards here and there that goes with everything, but it kind of feels pointless to trying to do. So let me explain that. You have, for prime example, machining ornamental that rests every single rear guard on your opponent's side of the field, and you get to choose one of two effects. Unless you soul blast a grade through with machining, then you get both effects at the same time. So every single rear guard gets +5k to the end of the turn. And the second effect is when your opponent wants to gets their standby phase, they can only restand 2 cards out of whatever's on the field. Now, to be fair, I feel like that the second effect is useless unless you're playing against Excel, where they have a hefty field. But even then, I kind of feel like the effect is a little bit pointless. But the first effect is the one that we want to focus on, giving everybody 5k to the end of the turn. So the synergy to all this is, you have Spark Hercules on the field. You call out Ornamental. Ornamental will rest every single rear guard. They all get +5k. You use Spark Hercules or Black Saturn to restand those rear guards, and they give another +5k. So basically, when they restand, they all your rear guards has +10k, which is actually pretty decent synergy. Do not get me wrong. However, I also kind of feel like that it's a little bit pointless at times, because that's way too many steps only to get 20k plus columns before it triggers. Now, don't get me wrong, you definitely have to hit numbers, and numbers is something that it took Mega Colony a long time for them to show up. But at the same time, it's like you have to go through all of that only for it to happen on one turn. Now, I also feel like that the issue with all this is that, for one, we're in a format right now where if you don't do more than 4 attacks minimum, you can't really do much. No matter how much power you put into a deck, or put into attacks, if it's not doing 4 attacks minimum, you can't really survive in the format. Like, think about this for a second. Asha has one of the most devastatingly powerful columns in the whole game. You have Asha regularly in the Asha tokens that allows you to get, +3 critical with whatever attack is currently on your Vanguard, just for the fucks of it, for no apparent reason. But at the same time, you mean to tell me that they're hitting 40k plus columns with +3 criticals and can't really finish games out? That's definitely saying something. It's all like, the pressure is there. You have, they're doing 4 damage to you for 1 attack. There's definitely pressure right there, but it's too easy to get over. It's too easy to, take at least one of the hits. It's too easy to it's too easy to do everything. It's too easy to guard against it and everything else like that. If you're playing a protect deck, you're just gonna PG it. It's not like they don't really have nothing to prevent you from using Sentinels, and it's not like they're hitting for like 70k plus. So I mean, there's ways around it, and it hits for one of the heaviest columns in the game with ease. That's the sad part about it. It hits with ease, and it doesn't really do much. And I kind of feel like that this is the same problem with machining. Machining can only do 3 attacks. And so like the only time you can actually do more than 3 attacks is if you put Pincer in there, which I did in this deck profile I'm going to show you. I did put him in there. But even then, after all the play testing, it's not consistent enough to justify it. Sadly, it's not really justifiable. So it's like, how do you survive in a format where 4 attacks is the minimum and you can only do 3? That's pretty much one of the biggest issues. And let's say let's put the theory that we're not counting we're not counting like the recent format. Let's say let's go back all the way to Raging Tactics. It still wasn't there. You still had the combo with Spark Hercules and Ornamental. It was still there, but there was still no focus. There was still no synergy. The synergy was right there, but it was so hard to do. It becomes almost ridiculous. So my thing is this. Um, I also actually, now that I think about it, there is another issue that I definitely feel like that we should go over. The resting your own rear guards. I feel like that if you were to play Ornamental on the Vanguard Circle, for a prime example, Ornamental in the Vanguard Circle is not really that good. Like, let's be real on that. Like, you're basically resting all of your rear guards with no way to restand them. Basically wasting that 5k potential. And you're like, well, what about Clear Frame? Okay, Clear Frame is actually pretty good. It's a good card, but it only restands 1 unit. What about the other 4 units on your rear guard circle? If you play, let's say, Spark Hercules, you can get away with it because you're able to restand all of your rear guards, but it's too dependent on Spark Hercules. And think about this. Like, what was it? Raging Tactics format. This wasn't necessarily where you had to do more than 3 attacks. Like, there was decks that you can do 3 attacks and still get away with it. But with even then, there was still nothing to really justify anything that machining was doing. I mean, even look at the grade 2s and the grade 1s. All of them are grade 3 searchers. And then you have Lady Bomb. Lady Bomb isn't a grade 3 searcher. She unflits, but guess what? She becomes useless late game because you only get the counter charge if your opponent has 3 fighters. Which I still to this day don't understand why Bushiroad did that. I still want to know why Bushiroad did that. I really do, because I think that that was completely useless. It was completely useless. But anyway, if I had to change anything with machining, I think I have a few suggestions. Like I said earlier, Black Saturn should have been on attack, restand everything, get +1 drive. That should have been on attack. The second thing that I feel like that I would have changed, in my honest opinion, is how about we have rear guards that has effects that activate when they're rested. Now I know some people are gonna be like, oh, well, that's what Cyberus does, which is cool. I understand that. Cyberus does it, which is good, but I felt like we should have had more. I feel like we should have had more. Um, and then I guess something to maybe something to maybe work with Spark Hercules. Like even if it's not just Spark Hercules, it's maybe something else. Like there should have been like a Spark Hercules specific card. Like, oh, if your opponent's like under 9K, you get like this ability. Whenever this card attacks or anything else like that, or when the card restands. Maybe we should have had more effects that was similar to Water Game. Where Water Game restands and then you get to counterblast one to put them back into the soul to draw to. Like we should have had something like, oh yeah, if this card gets restood, it gains X amount of attack if you like Soul Blast one or something like that. Or um it gets the ability of like wanting, I don't know, something like maybe get the ability of one of your opponent's units, or I don't know, something. We should have got something that allowed you to activate an effect when it restood, activate an effect when it gets rested, or anything else like that. That way there should have been more synergy. We also needed some type of finisher where I'm gonna be real with you. I can kind of sort of let Bushiroad pass a little bit on this. And because remember, our original finisher was Antlion. And Antlion at this particular time, despite that we had cards of machine their name, everything was pretty generic. It wasn't until we got to like Phantom Dragon Aeon that we started seeing everything being machining only based, which is basically Bushiroad shooting themselves in the foot when it comes to this particular effect. But anyway, outside of all that, man, I kind of wish that machining got like a lot better treatment than it did. I mean, legitimately, even people who don't play Mega Colony could tell that there's no focus on it, because in Bushiroad's eyes, it was, yo, everything has machine or card name, therefore there's synergy, which that's not the case. It wasn't the case with Silverthorns. It wasn't the case with Seven Seas. It wasn't the case with Eradicators. It wasn't the case with No Seals. And it wasn't even the case with Hamsukes. You mean to tell me that you can get all five of those a focus in synergy despite them being restricted to their name, but you couldn't do that with machining? That's ridiculous. Anyway, let's go to. He's like, let's go to the deck list. I'll see you guys there. All right, y'all. So as you can see here, this is a very ugly formatted picture of what I consider the deck profile. I'm sorry for how it looks. I'm trying to find like a decent editor where I can put the deck profile and whatnot. I was trying to do Card Fight Area, but it didn't have the Clan Selection Volume 1 stuff, and I'm definitely using that in this deck. So maybe it's a version I'm not looking at or something else. But anyway, I will be asking like if anybody knows a way to like lay everything out better. But so keep in mind that I'm using Machine Black Saturn, and I know this basically means that you have to proxy. If you don't want to proxy, which is completely understandable, then just replace two of the Black Saturns for two more Spark Hercules, and then bump up a Stag Beetle to one. So basically, we're just going to be doing that. And again, I completely understand, but I feel like that this promo was good enough to actually carry machinings in a way that Spark Hercules couldn't. I guess, if that makes any sense. So I'm running 3 black Saturn, and the only reason why I'm running 3 of them is because now that we have ways to search out for them, now that we have ways to recover them from the damage, from the drop zone with high class moth, there's no point of really running like a full playset of them, in my honest opinion. Especially seeing that Spark Hercules is like a good secondary. Spark Hercules is still pretty decent. Especially in this particular format. It's just that the most daunting thing is getting damage denied, knowing that he takes 2 counterblasts to use his ability. So that is an issue, and I feel like that's where Black Saturn comes in. So not only you get a triple drive check though, but um you also don't have to counterblast too in order to use his ability, just in case you do get damage denied. But we are running Spark Hercules. Remember, he is the Vanguard only skill, so we don't necessarily need to run a huge play set on him. And then we have Metro Bullet, which is going to be a unit that you're going to be using a lot. Again, you don't necessarily need a full play set because there's ways to recover. But basically, what he does is he force rests one of your units. He gains plus 10k to himself, and if there's 5 or more rear guards, every single rear guard machiner name gets boost. So that's a thing, something that I was talking about earlier. So honestly, this one is pretty good as well. Then we have that one stack beetle. Now I'm gonna be real with you. The only reason why I'm not running more than one is because I kind of feel like that Cyber. I mean, it's basically because Cyberus exists. So Cyberus prevents you from um actually having like more cards in hand, if that makes sense. Or basically Cyberus, it forces you to, I mean, that doesn't force you, but when it gets rested, it calls it looks at you look at the top 3 cards and it calls like a card from there with machine their name onto the rear guard circle. And the problem with Stack Beetle is he can only activate his effect if he's called from hand. So if he gets called by like Cyberus's effect, it's kind of useless. Or if he gets, called out by his own effect, which obviously he can't do because you're only running one, that's not necessarily going to happen either. But you get the gist of it. Last but not least, we are running Intruder, Interlude. And basically, the reason why we're running him is because, like I mentioned before, machining has an issue with getting more than 3 attacks out, and he is the only way we are going to be able to extend everything. So he is a key essential part of like the deck, and it's a little bit understandable. It kind of works because you're running them at 2. It doesn't interfere too much with the machining requirement. So I guess like seeing that you're running 2 of him, 3 high class moth, and what is it, 2 ladybugs, that's basically, what is it, it's 7 altogether. So you're running 7 non-machining cards in the deck while everything else outside of triggers is machining in their name. But he definitely works. He restands something, and it's a lot better than running Hell Demise. Next up, we got the Grade 2 lineup, which is pretty simple. It's just 4 Mantises and 4 Scattered Horn. Now, honestly, like running 8 Grade 2s is kind of sort of common in Mega Colony now, so it's understandable why I'm doing it. But for this particular reason, it's basically because Scatterhorn prevents you from getting anything from the search that is a non-grade 2 machining. And outside of the fact that these are the only 2 cards of machine their name that's a grade 2, you also have to put into the fact that it makes Scatterhorn like a little bit balanced, I guess, if that makes any sense. It prevents you from not really miswriting, what do you call it? It prevents you from missing the trigger, I guess, if that makes any sense. So it prevents you from missing its effect and everything else in between. Last but not least, we have the grade one lineup, which is kind of sort of simple. We have three high class moth, two butterfly officers, three cyberists, two ladybug bombs, and four hornets. Now, the reason why we're running this very confusing lineup is for a few reasons. High class moth, despite that it's a very good card, you got to remember that it is a once per turn, a hard once per turn. So running a full playset, despite it being a good thing, is kind of sort of a bad thing at the end of the day. Because once you use this effect, all you're really doing is trying to search out for more copies using grade 3 searchers. So it's understandable. Then you have Butterfly Officer, where Butterfly Officer has some type of connection with, machining and Mega Colony in general, and it's just one of those things where it's like you're either going to run it at 3 or you're going to run it at 2. And I kind of feel like the 2 is like the best number for this particular deck is because it doesn't have Machiner's name, so it kind of sort of minuses. But outside of that, I don't know. You have Lady Bug Bomb, which is another counter charger. And I have an issue with this card, like I mentioned before. It's basically because um the effect is dead once your opponent has more than 3 units on the field, which is basically going to be mid to late game. But hey, it has machine in his name, so obviously we're gonna find a way to like run it, I guess. Then of course Cyberus, again, he's a very hard once per turn, so you don't necessarily need a playset. And the only reason why I run the playset of Hornet is for a couple of reasons. He's a grade 1 searcher and he's an on hit skill. Which, let's be real, is kind of dangerous to some people, especially when they don't want to give you that damage. That extra um that extra grade 3 searching does kind of sort of come in handy from time to time. And plus it does put itself into the soul, so it also does help with the counter charging issue. But overall, pretty good movie. Pretty good deck list or anything else like that. I'm sorry, I don't know why I said movie. Last but not least, we're looking at the grade zeros. We have 4 heals, 6 criticals, 6 draws, 4 of them being draw PGs. This is because machining, let's be real, it needs as much help as possible. You want to keep as aggro as possible, and you want to keep the pressure on your opponent, but at the same time you do need some defense. You need to play simple play, and let's be real, like the draw power that Mega Colony has, as far as like with when you don't count, on draw triggers or anything else like that, it's slim to none. So it's that's pretty much the only reason why we're running like 6 draws and 6 criticals and whatnot. It's basically pretty standard, and it basically helps out with um tempo flow. Like, to be honest, I really wanted to do like um what was it? I wanted to do 7 crits of 5 draws and 4 heals. I kind of wanted to do that though, but like, nah. But anyway, this is my machining deck profile. This is my whole video on machining. Hope you liked it. Enjoy, subscribe, do whatever. My name is Mrs. Zoo Nation, aka Savage Armor Jones Rafa, signing out.